Episode 1, After Hours with Felty. Really excited to debut it. Little podcast starting up, just trying to get my thoughts out there. Little chill, laid back kind of thing. Obviously, for the first episode, we had to get Max Loeb on here, aka Loeb's lead. Max, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm pumped to be on here. Pumped to talk a little bit NFL draft. It's been a busy week with all that stuff. Lots of odds changes as well that I've seen this morning too, which has been really crazy. But I'm pumped to talk. It's gonna be a good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I this year's class, I think is just like right up my alley because I mean, I love the offensive stuff,
Yep.
obviously. And then this is perfect, with quarterbacks, wide receivers, and even offensive tackles too. It seems like there's absolutely a ton of guys that are going to be really just, I mean, it's loaded. It's loaded to say the
Yeah.
least. But I wanted to go and talk about the QBs first things first, because obviously, the QBs rule quarterbacks at the league and stuff like that. So th there are, I would say, probably at least 4 to 6 names swirling around that are potentially in the first round. Me personally, I don't think that they're going to be that many in the first round, but I at least wanted to go over all of them. First things first, there's one quarterback that I think stands above everyone else in this draft
Yeah.
class, and that's Caleb Williams. I don't really want to get too heavy into him just because, everyone kind of knows what he is, but do you like he is the clear-cut number one guy, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think one, his upside is higher than anybody else in the draft, which is a huge thing, especially if you're trying to draft at a spot where you want a franchise altering player. Like we talk about upside like it's not this real thing. Like it really matters, especially to the franchises who need guys like that. But I think two things. One, I think the societal perception of him has made us look away from how good he is at football. Like that's a real thing. And there are concerns with players outside of their football lives when you draft them because they're people too. You're drafting a person. But I think that has almost pushed us away from Caleb Williams, which is the most important thing I've noticed. But two, like just the raw talent and raw ability, it's special, and he can make every throw in the book. He can go off script. I do wonder how he will adjust to the NFL speed, the different NFL defenses he will play, but it's not a question that isn't there for the other rookies as well. Like that's the nature of coming into the NFL as a rookie. Like you learn it's a different world than college football. So I'm very excited to see him. Obviously, he is the number one overall pick. I'm sure we'll talk about where we go from there, but I'm very excited to see Caleb Williams for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing where there's another quarterback that was pushing him a little bit, I think, for me. But overall, though, I mean, like, I turn on the tape and this dude's just insane. And I think it's just one of those things where we have so much time to talk about, the NFL draft from the end of the college season there, where people get bored and they try to create narratives and stuff like that. But you
Yeah.
just cannot go wrong with this kid. I mean, the first time that I ever seen him play in college against that Texas there when he was at Oklahoma, like that was special there. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's very incredible. I don't want to compare him to Patrick Mahomes really, but do you have a comparison for him?
He reminds me a lot of Jordan Love, to be honest with you. I do think I like you can never compare somebody to Patrick Mahomes because of how good Patrick Mahomes is.
Right.
Their play styles are similar though. And I think a lot of people will sit here and be like, you can't compare him to Patrick Mahomes because of all the things that Mahomes has done, which is true. Like the accolades, the top play that Mahomes has demonstrated really ever since he started in the NFL, you can't compare him, but in terms of play style, like that's a pretty good comparison. I think Jordan Love is the big one. Jordan Love's a little bit bigger than him, I believe, but very similar. Can make pretty much every throw in the book, has a really strong arm, can throw off platform really well, athletic. Like I think Jordan Love is probably the best comparison that I can think of, at least off the top of my head. Um, it's weird because I also think Kyler Murray. I wonder if Kyler's arm is as strong as Caleb's arm. That's my thing. And Kyler's also obviously shorter, so almost like a cross between the two, but I think he's more Jordan Love than anything else for sure.
Yeah, that I definitely go with I lean more towards the Kyler comps in my opinion
Yeah.
because I mean, and that's not like a knock at all because I'm very high on Kyler. I mean, we've
Yeah,
talked
I am
about
too.
that one
Yeah.
before. Yeah, he's very underrated in the league, especially with the injury. But Either way, though, yeah, Caleb, I think locked in, number one guy. Can't go wrong
Yeah,
with that. However,
agreed.
there are two names really that are kind of been duking it out, in my opinion, for the number two spot. Hasn't been that much of a battle for me, but for other people, I know it's a lot different. And that's Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Obviously, Drake May coming from UNC didn't have the most productive year, had a little bit of a decline from the year prior. And then now you have Jaden Daniels, who wins the Heisman. I mean, absolutely balled out this year. I mean, give him credit. He did very well, to say the least. But at the same time, too, like there's this constant battle, and you're now seeing it with the Commanders at pick two. Where do you stand on the Drake May versus the Jaden Daniels?
I would probably take Jaden Daniels at two over Drake May. I honestly don't think there's a ton that separates them when they're both at their best, but I worry about the consistency of their best. Obviously, the career trajectories, especially in college, of those guys are wildly, wildly different. Jaden Daniels, transferring all over the place, really. I mean, 2 years ago at LSU, like he was solid, but like this was the year where you're like, okay, this guy can play. Drake May put together a couple good years. So the bodies of work are different. The historical progression of these guys and what they did in college is different. I think it's two things for Jaden Daniels. I think people look at Jaden Daniels, and I've seen comparisons for guys like Lamar Jackson. I've even seen like Josh Allen a little bit because he's a bigger guy. He's athletic. He can run. I think they neglect his ability to make a lot of really good throws. I think that's the thing for me where I'm like, I look at Jaden Daniels athletically. He is up there, if not better than Caleb Williams, at least with what he can offer you when it comes to standing in the pocket, when it comes to reading a defense, when it comes to like you have to go stand in and make a throw at the defender in your face, he can do it. And I think that's what people push to the side with him because you're getting a combination of a really, really good thrower of the football and a guy that's athletic enough to go make a lot of plays off script, off platform throws. Like, I think it's the perfect fusion for a guy like Jaden Daniels. Depends on obviously fit. If he goes to Washington, who knows what that's going to look like. But I think that to me, his best is a little bit better than Drake May's in the sense that athletically, he probably offers you more than May. And I don't think that's to say Drake May is a bad athlete because I think if you cut on tape, you can see like he makes a lot of those same plays where he's athletic, he can go break the pocket, he can go run. But I think Jaden Daniels, the fusion of that athleticism and ability to make mostly every throw is something you can't really pass up, especially again, if you're drafting it two, you want a franchise altering guy. I would trust Jaden Daniels to do that more than Drake May.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty high on Drake May. He is my number two quarterback. But I don't think that like Jaden Daniels is like I think he's clear cut number three guy for me too. Like they're
Yeah.
it's sort of close, but I definitely think that there's a little bit of a gap there. In my opinion, I feel like Drake May, he's definitely got a lot of the prospect fatigue going around, in my opinion,
Absolutely. Yeah.
especially what you saw with CJ Stroud. I know I made the
Yeah.
comparison on my Twitter that this year CJ Stroud is Drake May at this point, but at the same time too, I think like Drake May, I mean, some of the throws that he has made is absolutely ridiculous. Like one of the big things that I like to, look at about a prospect and stuff is just like where is their ball placement? And I've just seen
Mhm.
so many throws by him that it's just like, dude, like how did you even make that throw? And the highs are very high, but at the same time, there are some low points. I definitely agree with that. I think the footwork's going to need to be cleaned up a little bit when he comes into the league. Hopefully, he goes to a team that does kind of fix that up. But in terms of like going to whoever gets picked at two and like, whoever the Commanders are going to roll out with, I don't mind the fit for both of them, honestly,
Yeah.
because if talking about Cliff Kingsbury, he runs the air raid offense. He's going to have a lot of downfield play there. And I think like both of them, that's where they excel the most is just being able to launch it downfield. And the only thing that I would think is maybe slightly better for Jaden Daniels is more of like he doesn't have to necessarily target the middle of the field. I definitely had that concern a little bit. There was a little bit of timing I felt like with him throwing in the middle of the field. So if you're throwing outside the numbers, I think that's a perfect fit for both guys, honestly. So either way, though, I mean, I think the Commanders really they could potentially get a franchise guy. I mean, the only other thing too about Jaden Daniels, and it's you see all the memes on Twitter and stuff like that. Like it's like he's the Tasmanian devil and gets hitting with an
Yeah.
anvil, whenever he's running around and stuff. To a degree, I feel like that's a little bit of a concern for me, just because
Mhm.
like Lamar, one of the big knocks that people said about him when he was trying to get that contract extension there was that like he's not healthy and stuff like that. And like if Jaden Daniels can't stay healthy in the league, like that's going to be a number one thing for him as well. So it's hard to predict like if he'll stay healthy. Who knows? Maybe he figures that out how to slide and stuff and doesn't take as many shots. So it's hard to project that, but I think both are going to be solid at the bare minimum. I think they're both going to be very solid quarterbacks in the league. So either way, you can't go wrong with it. But there is one other guy that's been pushed into this conversation that I don't really think should be pushed into the
Mm.
conversation, and that's JJ McCarthy. At one point, he was projected to potentially be the number two overall pick, which I think is absolutely crazy in my opinion. Uh, can you kind of talk about what are your thoughts and why do you think that he's getting pushed into this?
Well, I honestly do think he has the talent to. I don't think he's better than those other two guys, but I think he has the talent to be in the conversation with those guys rather than the guys below him. He has an incredible arm, an absolutely incredible arm, arguably the best arm in this draft class. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say that. Can, again, pretty much make every throw in the book. I mean, athletically, like he leaves more to be desired compared to those top three guys, but it's not to say he isn't a bad athlete. Operated in a moderately pro style offense. Like he's been with Harbaugh for however many years. He's very comfortable in that system. He's very comfortable operating in a balanced offense, an offense that's complementary, that can do a lot of really good things. He has the raw talent, I think, to be in the conversation with those guys as a baseline. Now, granted, the upside of guys like Jaden Daniels, Drake May is probably a little bit more because of what they can offer you athletically, how they can change a game, things like that. But I do think JJ McCarthy genuinely has the arm talent, the mental processing ability, and honestly, just the overall talent to be a serviceable NFL quarterback. Does he go top three? I don't know. I probably would not put him there, but I don't think it would like floor me, shock me out of my shoes if he was the third overall pick. Second would be a little concerning for me because I do think, again, if you're Washington picking it to take a guy with the upside to change your franchise, New England, if you're three though, like is a quarterback going to come in year one and really change your franchise like that when you're overhauling so many pieces? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Patriots do. I think that's the big talking point for a draft because first two picks are going to be quarterbacks regardless of who they are. But for JJ McCarthy, I think he goes in the top 10 and if or I should say top 11 because I think Minnesota's picking at 11
Yeah.
and I think if he's there for them at 11, they swing the bat. Absolutely. Don't even hesitate. But it's the question of if they trade up for him. That's what I'm really looking at. So I will say, but he will be gone by that 11 pick because Minnesota will take him if he's there. I think at least, and if not, then somebody probably traded up for him.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of my thoughts too of like, obviously the tape's limited. You don't get to see too much from him just because, the type of offense, they didn't have to throw the ball. They were up most of the time by halftime and they had two very good running backs. So like I totally understand why they wouldn't go and throw the ball consistently.
Yeah,
But, I do think that that's one of the things where you have to really dive into the film to be able
yeah.
to see it. My opinion, I definitely think that he's going to be a guy where if he goes to the right team, I think that's going to be the key for him.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's normal for most guys, but at the same time, for a guy like him, I don't necessarily know if he goes to a team that's doesn't have any weapons, like the Patriots, for example, like I start to question like what's going to happen there. But if he goes to a team like the Vikings, on the other hand, like that's huge. And
Yeah.
like he could definitely fill into that role pretty easily, considering that, they got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and also do Kevin O'Connell's a very good play caller. Their offensive line's very good. Like that's a perfect fit for him. And that's why, like, if he does get drafted in the top 10, like, and that's one of the teams that he goes to, like, perfect. I think one of the things that I saw on Twitter that I really liked was a comparison to like Ryan Tannehill. And
Mm.
I kind of liked it a little bit because a lot of people forget about how like Ryan Tannehill was low key an athlete at one point. Like
Yeah.
obviously, like later in his career, not too much there, but like when you get him into the right scheme, he gets into the Tennessee Titans team, like it, like he actually figures it out a little bit. Not a good fit in Miami, but like I don't know. That's one thing that I'm kind of considering there. But either way, though, I mean, like yeah, I think at the worst he will be at least a pretty good system guy, but at the same time too, like you definitely do have to take the chance. I think he's also a little bit of a risk taker too. I don't know if you like seen that a little bit, but like there's a couple times, which honestly it's a good and bad thing because like, you have to be able to make those NFL throws. He has the
Yeah.
ability to throw over the middle of the field, but like honestly, like I really don't think that he's a bad prospect whatsoever. I know I've seen other people saying like second, third round, and I don't
No.
really think that that's fair to him just because you're not really diving too much into the film then.
Yeah. I think there are four. hmm, I'll say four for right now. Four true quarterbacks you can draft, and they'll come in and start week one. You can feel confident. I think he is the fourth. I don't know how I feel about Penix. I think if there's going to be a fifth quarterback taken in the first round, I find it really hard to believe it's going to be a team like Vegas or Denver in the middle of the first. I think somebody's going to have to trade back up into the late first, which I think is reasonable. Like we've seen it happen before, but I think that's what's going to have to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of touching on it really quick then too, like you don't think then Nick's Penix you would take him in the first round?
It would really depend where, because if I'm remembering correctly, it's Minnesota at 11 and Denver at 12. I can't remember where Vegas is, but Vegas is in the what would it be the
13.
top. They're oh okay, so they're
Yeah.
13. So top 18 regardless. Like I find it really hard to believe that teams like that who have other needs to fill, like Denver has a lot of needs to fill. That's the reality with the Broncos team. And I think Vegas knows they can improve elsewhere. I think corner is going to be huge for Vegas this year. But if they wanted to trade back up, I don't know what it would take. I don't know who would be willing to trade down. It would depend on where the board was. But those playoff teams that probably don't need, or at least they don't feel like they need an immediate first round contributor who would be more inclined to trade down. Like I could see a team like Denver or Vegas, or really just whoever doesn't get the fourth quarterback, whoever it is, it's probably McCarthy, whoever doesn't get the fourth quarterback, trading back up to take one of those guys late. And another thing, I know we'll talk about the Giants a little bit. Like Giants, if they want to go early second, take a quarterback there, like that could be something I see too. I think those guys are late day one, early day two picks.
Yeah, and I guess we could kind of go into that really quick then. I
Yeah.
mean, the Giants rumors, like right now, I don't know if you saw a couple of the mock drafts, like they had them going with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, in my opinion, I don't want them to be taking a quarterback with the sixth overall pick. Like, I think that's kind of crazy,
I think
right?
it's crazy too. It's one, it's financially crazy because whether you believe in Daniel Jones or not, you're paying that quarterback so much money. You almost, it's kind of like the Browns and Deshaun Watson in the sense like you have him on the books for this much money. Obviously, you don't want to do anything that you feel goes against your chance of winning football games, but you have him on the books for this much money. Like you're in a rebuilding year if you're the Giants. You want to give him as much opportunity as possible, as many chances as possible to almost prove you right. Because the reality with the Giants now is if that deal doesn't work out in the next, I don't know, year or two, whether they cut him next year, I think Joe Shane, their general manager, might just be out. Like that is a franchise financially at least altering move that you just swung and missed on. And I do think like again, very similar with Deshaun Watson, the Browns, like the jury's not still out, but there's still a chance to salvage at least partially what that deal encapsulated. So I don't think taking a quarterback at 6 is a smart move, especially, if the top five, I guess, shakes out where it's three quarterbacks, Marvin Harrison Jr. probably and then a second receiver. Like if they have a guy like Rome Odunze there, if Malik Neighbors falls to them at 6, I heartbeat would take him there. Like there are too many other good players that can change the identity of your offense while still allowing, a decently serviceable quarterback in the right system, of course, to continue to play on that crazy deal that he has. So if I'm the Giants and I want to take a quarterback, I would be appalled if they took one at 6. I saw a mock draft that had them trading up to 4 to
Yeah.
take JJ McCarthy. Like that, to me, that makes no sense. And I think that honestly, stuff like that, especially trading up for a quarterback, is more, it's for clicks like that. It's not realistic. But a quarterback at 6 is not a crazy thought. I would hate it.
Yeah. So then in an ideal world, like you're at pick 6, you basically have whatever. Maybe we'll take Marvin Harrison Jr. out of this because I think
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be gone within the top 4. But
Yeah.
if you had to pick one guy, who would it be?
Malik Neighbors for sure. I think that's an transcendent athlete that you're getting at the receiver position. Something the Giants haven't had. I don't even know how long. Like that's a guy that can go out and physically change a game on the outside or on the inside. That's a guy that defenses have to game plan for every single week. I think that is, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is off the board, far and away the best prospect that will be on the board for the Giants. The perfect world is probably, I mean, 1, 2, 3, you can go Caleb Williams, Jane Daniels, Drake May. The perfect world for the Giants is somebody else leapfrogging them at 4 or 5, because I could see the Chargers trading down 4 or 5 to take JJ McCarthy. That way, it's just Harrison off the board, so you can take whichever receiver you want outside of Harrison, of course, at 6. I think that's the perfect world. Or I don't know what it would take for the Giants to move up from 6 to 4 or 6 to 5, but doing that and taking Marvin Harrison, if Marvin Harrison's on the board, I'd love to see that too. I would not be upset about that.
Yeah. So then kind of going, I guess, into the wide receivers now. Marvin Harrison Jr., like I don't like I've had my grading scale and stuff like that. He is so far the highest guy I've ever graded. I mean, he's phenomenal. Like there's clear cut, same thing where you better not overthink this one and say Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors. Yeah, okay.
I,
Well, in
I
like
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's like night and day. I'm with you. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is special, and I think he has like that's the guy to me that has fallen victim to the biggest prospect fatigue, if you want to call it that, because like he's just been so dominant for a couple years. It's almost like you know exactly what you're getting and you're bored of it. Like that's not right to me. If you're gonna, draft Marvin Harrison or want to draft Marvin Harrison, you're getting a special talent. I do think though, like he's a transcendent receiver talent. I think Malik Neighbors may not be on the level that Marvin Harrison is, but I do think Malik Neighbors is there. Like I think he offers a different type of physical prowess, a different type of athleticism. Like to me, he reminds me a lot of a more stockier Jamar Chase. Like that's a guy to me who's can take the top off of defense, can take a 5 yard hitch and go run past your entire defense. Like that's a guy who's transcendent in a different way. I think Marvin Harrison again offers you more, but I think Malik Neighbors are 2, and that's not even talking about Rome Odunze, who again is an unbelievable receiver. Like to me, there are those 3 guys, and then there's the others which we'll talk about. But I think Marvin Harrison. It's tough to say far and away the best receiver because I don't know if he is, but he is the best.
yeah. So then you kind of said it there. Neighbors is your 2 then, and then I'm assuming then Odunze is your 3.
Yeah,
So how far the gap between Neighbors and Odunze is it for you? And can you talk about like kind of why you have that?
it's in terms of like physical picks on the draft board. It's not going to be a big gap because I think those teams in the top 10 are going to be really incentivized to take one of those elite guys. In terms of talent, like I think there's a gap. I don't think it's extremely big, but again, I think the biggest thing that separates Odunze and Malik Neighbors is just the physical like specimen presence on the field that Malik Neighbors is. Like that's a guy you can put in a lot of different places, have him do a lot of different things. And Romo Dunze is very versatile too, right? Like he can run pretty much every route in the book. He is a very good route runner. But I think with tasked with what Romo Dunze did at Washington and what he will be tasked with in the NFL, like I think Malik Neighbors could do it at a similar level with more danger after the catch, more danger in contested catch situations. Like I think he offers a little bit more physically.
Yeah, and I think that's where the this is where people I think struggle a lot with the draft. Like they get in arguments about, who's the better wide receiver, Odunze or Neighbors, but in reality, what it comes down to is just what your preference is. And that's why,
Yeah.
like, I have Odunze at two, but that's more because I like the prototypical X wide receiver that you could, because that's usually a rare thing. Like you don't see that many big X receivers that can route run at this point.
No,
But at the same
not
time,
anymore.
like Neighbors is probably the most explosive wide receiver in this draft class. And like that's not even a question.
Yeah,
It's pretty far. But I think that just really comes down to like what your preferences is and stuff. So like I definitely think that both will be very good wide receivers in the league. Like there's no doubt about it. I'm honestly more sure that they're going to be better wide receivers and top tier wide receivers than the quarterbacks will be, just because that's just the nature of it. It's hard to tell with quarterbacks and stuff. But
yeah,
either way, I think like if you're getting one of these three guys, I mean, you're getting a home run guy. Like it's no doubt about it. Like this is your wide receiver one for sure, no matter what. Um,
absolutely.
so then there are other wide receivers, obviously, in this draft, just not those three. But do you think that, in my opinion, I have six guys in which would be like considered a first round grade for
Okay.
me and for wide receivers. How many do you think actually go in round one?
Probably five because I think Adonai Mitchell offers enough athletically that someone will take a shot on him. I think Brian Thomas can do a lot of really good things. Are those? I assume those are two of your other guys.
Yeah.
Is the last guy Lad McConkey? Because I like Lad McConkey a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I think there are other receivers that can give you what Lad McConkey can give you. So I don't think a team will reach for him in the first round. Like, it's not to say he's not a good talent, and it's not to say that, who knows if the Giants, for example, do wind up going quarterback at 6 and they're back up again early in the second. Like, who knows if that's the direction they go, or even in the third round, who knows? Like a team like trying to think what maybe the Washington Commanders want to take a shot at another receiver, right? You lose a slot guy in Curtis Samuel. Maybe they want to do something like that. Like I think there are a lot of not a lot, I shouldn't say, but there are receivers that will give you exactly what you want in a number one. Then I think there are receivers that kind of have to be in the right scheme. Like I think Adonai Mitchell does kind of have to be in the right scheme, but if given the opportunity, like athletically, he is as good as they come. And I know we don't like to draft people based off their speed, but it's something you really like. You can't teach, and you can teach, route running, footwork, things like that. So I think somebody will take a chance on him. I'm staring at the Buffalo Bills to do something at receiver. I don't know if it's Adonai Mitchell. I would not be shocked if it was Brian Thomas, to be honest with you, but I think that's kind of where they lean. But those are I'd say five in the first round. I mean, like I don't know. I don't think McConkey will go in the first round. Would it shock me if he did? Probably not, but it'd have to be the very back half of it.
Right. No, I agree. I think Lad, for me, in my opinion, I'll start off with him. Like, he's a very good route runner, but the problem is like what is his ceiling? Is it
Yeah,
pretty low? He is a little bit smaller, but I mean, route running ability is off the charts. And I kind of like the comparison of like Deontay Johnson a little bit, just
yeah,
because I think that fits in perfectly where it's like, I guess he's a wide receiver one, but he would be a very wide, like solid wide receiver two on a team and stuff like that.
yeah,
So I think that's the case with Lad McConkey, and I'd understand why then he wouldn't go in the first round if that's going to be the case. But like other than that, I definitely think like Brian Thomas Jr., he's probably in the next tier below the top three guys. I think athletically he's a freak as well.
yeah.
He downfield an absolute mammoth of a threat to say the least. And I think I see a lot of like a Nico Collins this year in that
Mhm.
case, which I mean, very solid. I think that's a clear cut one then. And then,
Yeah,
Adonai Mitchell, I think is a little bit more of a risk too, just because, it's a boomer bust kind of thing, but at the same time too, like if it hits, like dude, you got yourself a very good wide receiver one.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it was probably 5 to 6. Um, Either way, though, I mean, like, there's other guys in this draft that I do have questions around and stuff. But overall, though, I mean, I'm excited to see a lot of these guys. So if you're looking then kind of later into like day two, early day three kind of thing, is there one guy that you have been like preaching about that you hope even like the Giants maybe take a shot on?
Well, most of the guys I like later on are the guys like I think teams would lean over McConkey like slot guys. That's not really the Giants. They don't need a guy like that.
Right. They have so many
But
slots.
yeah, they have a lot of slot receivers. But I do think a guy, it's tough. I like Roman Wilson, but I think Jermaine Burton is the big one for me. Like I think he's very versatile. He's very quick. He can do a lot of really, really good things. Like to me, if I'm a team sitting at the end of the first round, Adonai Mitchell and Brian Thomas are off the board, like the five guys have been taken, and I see Lad McConkey, and I think, okay, I could take him, or I could take whatever your other need is, whatever other players you like, and wait till day two to take another slot guy. Even like Ricky Persall, like there's a lot of really good slot guys. Is a deeper slot wide receiver class that I would be shocked again if McConkey went in the first round. But I don't know. I think Roman Wilson offers a lot. I think just generally speaking, again, a guy that's been pretty familiar with the pro style offense for a couple years can step in and do a lot of really good things. And as a slot receiver, like you're kind of the spearhead for your offense, right? There's the motion is at an all-time high in the NFL. A lot of different packages that have you in the backfield. Like you have to be able to understand certain things. And as a spearhead of the offense, like a guy like Roman Wilson would understand those, at least from what I understand and expect.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like you said, like this class is just so deep in the slot. Like
Yeah.
you could literally find one within round 4 or 5, if anything, and he could
Yep.
fill in perfectly. And
Absolutely.
I think like I definitely know you've been in tune with Cleveland Twitter and stuff like that because I mean they've been talking about Jermaine Burton for a while now. I think that'd be a
Yeah.
good fit to say the least. But yeah, I mean I think a couple other guys that I've been looking at like I think even like later, honestly, like the slot, like Taj Washington out of USC. I think he's phenomenal in terms of like a yak guy. Malik Washington as well. I think he's very fun gadget kind of guy in like a round four perspective there. Um, and then also too Malachi Corley. If he goes to the Chiefs, that would be very fun to say the least, just because they love to have those guys that could get yards after the catch there. And I mean, that's his main bread and butter there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm like really excited to see how the rest of this wide receiver class pans out. I guess there's one other guy, I didn't put it on here, but I wanted to see your thoughts on it really quick. Keon Coleman, what do you think?
That's another guy for me, like early day two, athletically, like he will give you so much. To me, that's another guy who can creep into that tier with the Brian Thomases of the world. Like I think at his best, he is a first round talent. I think athletically he can do that, but there are different concerns. Like to me, it's hands, route running. Like there are a lot of concerns, probably why he's slipping so far, but again, if you're a team on day two who wants to take a shot at a true alpha receiver, like Keon Coleman is the guy you can get on day two or even day three with the upside to become a day one guy outside of the slot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the dude is a physical freak to say the
Yeah.
least. I definitely do have concerns about his separation ability and his downfield speed, but I mean, overall, like if you're a team that's able to take a shot on a guy like him in like maybe like round two and you still have a wide receiver one on your team, like, dude, that'd be perfect. And I mean, if he doesn't hit, tough, but like at the same time too, like I would be willing to take that shot because you could be
Yeah.
looking at a potential stud, like you said there. Um, there's in terms of like the tight end class, it's not as good as years prior,
Yeah.
but there's obviously one guy that may be at least blue chip, in my opinion. I won't want to throw around the generational term or anything like that. But Brock Bowers is, I mean, he's fun to watch to say the least.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him, and where do you think is like an ideal spot for him to end up?
I think, I mean, on the surface, he's easily the best tight end in the draft class. Like, I don't think another tight end will go day one, maybe day two. But I think I think ideal fit, and I did this in a mock I did probably like a month ago. I think Cincinnati has the ability to trade up and get him. I think that could be a very real thing. But my worry is if he makes it past five, because I think the Chargers could very well take a swing at the bat and take him. Again, it's a versatile guy. I think he would fit Harbaugh's system great. Can do a lot of really good things. Very comfortable again in a system with a lot of talent around him. Those Georgia players, like there's a reason they come to the NFL and they're so successful. It's because they practice against those guys every day. But that you're coming from a program with a lot of pedigree. He's operated at the highest level for a couple of years now. I think a Harbaugh system with Brock Bowers would almost be a match made in heaven. But I do think if there's a way that Cincinnati can get up there, I think it's worth a shot for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he is a top 10 talent in this draft. He's very, very good. I mean,
Yeah,
I've even seen people talk about him being potentially a big slot in that case too, where I mean, I would be all for it. I think he has the ability to easily do that. Um, I also think the Jets would be a really fun one, considering
Yeah,
that, I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers' history, like he's played with very talented tight ends. And like, if you get a guy like him, I know he doesn't really like his rookies and stuff like that, but like he could be a guy that could really fill in there. I think he at least has the pedigree to be a guy that doesn't even like really feel like a rookie too. Like he could step in
yeah.
there and be very good for them, especially too. Like they don't know what they're necessarily going to be doing with slot position. I think you can move them around a ton there. That would be a really fun fit for me. I've been seeing a lot of mock drafts of that recently, ever since they got Tyrone Smith. So they don't really have the offensive tackle need anymore. But I definitely think that that'd be fun. Last question before I let you go. Are there's obviously every year like a fit that you would just love to happen, like a match made in heaven. Last year, mine was Devon
Yeah.
Jay to the Miami Dolphins, and it happened, and I was so happy about it. Is there one fit that would just absolutely make your day?
Make my day. I think this like it wouldn't make my day because it the Dallas Cowboys, but I do think Jonathan Brooks to Dallas. I think it's a real like on the surface it's a real thing, but seeing what a running back like that can offer to such a dynamic pass offense, I think could take them to new levels. I think last year I think Tony Pollard gets a little bit more hate than deserved. I think he was solid last year. I don't think the whole like Zeke leaving ruined his career. I'm not a believer in that, but I do think a young running back on a rookie deal to step in, almost immediately produce in that offense. I'm sure, although I do like Rico Dowdle back there, Jonathan Brooks would be a new step up, and I don't know if Dallas goes there in the late first round. I doubt they do, but as the second round comes around, he's still on the board. I think that could be a team that is pretty active and trading up to get him because I do worry about that him being there with their second round pick. But I think that is to me the perfect fit, especially as it relates to running backs. Overall, I mean it's tough. Like I think Brock Bowers to the Chargers would be a really, really good fit. Look, I don't know what the Vikings are going to do at quarterback, but I do think Michael Penix would be a really nice fit in Minnesota. I think it's a similar offense, can sling the ball down the field. Like Justin Jefferson would love him, but again, I don't know if they wait that long or they trade back, whatever. That's a huge question mark. But I think those are my big three.
Yeah, I think one, obviously, switching to the other side of the ball, there are a ton of cornerbacks in this draft that are lanky and very athletic,
Yeah.
which that screams Dan Quinn.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, any of those guys, I'm thinking like TJ Tampa comes to mind pretty quickly there, especially because of the day two pick there, like that's perfect for them. I believe Cam Hart, another guy that's could fit that mold. Also, too, blanking on the name right now, but I believe he was playing at. Oh my gosh, I totally forget. There's another guy there, but oh, Kyrie Jackson, the kid from Oregon, I think would
Okay.
also kind of fit that scheme as well. I love it whenever Dan Quinn gets his hands on one of those tall, lengthy, athletic guys there. I think that's one of the fits that I would love to see. Another one that I really like and that potentially could happen. I don't want it to be at pick 12, but I think Bo Nix, if he could
Mm,
somehow find a way to the Broncos, like
interesting.
I think that would be absolutely phenomenal for Sean Payton just because Sean Payton loves a quarterback that will just do whatever he tells him to do. And I
Yeah.
think Bo Nix, like, he may not have a high ceiling, but at the same time, like, you know what you're going to get out of him. And I think he would run that system to a T. I think that's probably the best fit for him. And then I guess I'll go a little bit off the wall on my last one. But Spencer Rattler to the Rams, I think would
Mm,
be a ton of fun there. Just because,
interesting.
I love Matthew Stafford. I think he's very close to being a top five quarterback. I know we
Yeah.
both are kind of like he's underrated, and yeah, that's easily that. But at the same time, too, he's starting to get a little bit older there. And like, if you could
Yeah.
transition from Matthew Stafford and then, the upside of a guy like Spencer Rattler, like, that'd be huge, because I
Yeah.
know like everything that happened in his career, it obviously it was a mess to say the least.
Hmm.
But at the same time, too, like I watched this film this year and like he's done a lot of phenomenal
Yeah.
stuff. And I would love that personally. I know it's kind of a random off the wall one, but at the same time, too, like it could very well happen because I know
Yeah.
Rattler probably won't go within the first two rounds, maybe, but like round three, might as well take a shot on that one.
Why not? Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. So thank you again, dude, for hopping on the first
Yes,
episode.
sir. Yeah.
I knew I was like, yeah, I gotta get Max on for at least the first one, get him rolling and stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, I think this will be fun. Fun to see everything unravel here. And I'm sure we'll probably get our thoughts out here soon after it's all done and stuff. So, but Max, thank you again. Really appreciate it. And then stay tuned for next episode.
Thank you guys.